Look, if you don't have a good
Yeah,
cover, if you don't have a good
yeah.
cover, don't do the book.
It's so true. People don't realize. I mean, I see these people going on Canva going, "Look at my book cover I did." And as a professional designer who went to college for this with a 40-year career, and I've freelanced for Lintus and Saatchi, I'm cringing. And I'm
Right.
like, just because you heated up your meal in the microwave doesn't make you a chef, and using Canva doesn't make you a professional designer. Drives me crazy because there's two things we have to factor in nowadays when we design. You want touchability of your book. Your book is judged by its cover. I hate to say it.
Yep.
And so when they see it, they want to pick it up. It's got to be tactile. But at the same time, yeah. Do you know what everybody was doing when I had that cover designed over at Greenleaf?
Huh.
Everybody was doing these big, colorful covers with big, bold letters and everything. And I did the opposite because I wanted it to stand out on the shelf, and it did at the time.
Oh,
And
big
it
time.
made
And also,
I
it's
had,
classy with
yeah,
this.
for you to create a modern business with great people and the ability to expand and create legacy and things like that. So, Liquid Leadership will teach you how to be a great leader in this multi-generational work environment that you're in today. And one of the first things I talk about in there is you have to create an environment where you can tell the truth. You can't lie to each other. You can't BS each other. You
Right.
have to be able to tell the truth. You also have to create an environment of trust. You don't fire somebody simply because they tell the CEO, hey, look, maybe your girlfriend shouldn't. You got to go. I said, why? He goes, this is the time I used to play World of Warcraft with my kids so that when I'm home on the weekend, we pick up just as if, nothing had happened, like dad
That's
was
awesome.
never away.
That's great.
And I thought, that is genius,
Well,
just genius.
and that's the point of your book is if you don't know what your kids like, you've already made yourself impossible to understand them. So, and we are live. Welcome to the Dr. Smiley Show. I have an old friend who's a young heart, Brad Szollose, and I use this new project I'm doing, the Dr. Smiley Show, edifying, honoring 365 heart-centered leaders that I believe are making the world better, inspiring the world more, and giving hope. So, Brad, I came up with this project just so I could talk to you again.
Thanks, Dr. Ken. I appreciate you being on the show, or having me on your show. When we first met, I was just blown away by how much you come from the heart. And it's rare that we run into us. And I said in the green room, not like minded, like vibration. So hats off to you. Thank you for having me on.
Well, I want to do a different show because my intention is, even though I did 600 shows on Voice America, and you were one of them, and that was why I picked several of them to redo, is I want to have a new conversation where you are now. I wanted to take a deeper dive in your new version of this book
Hmm.
and just what you're up to. And then, of course, any new ways to reach out to you. I know back when we talked, I was not Dr. Smiley. And it was very painful, by the way, Brad, when I had to start with one like and one follower on Instagram with Dr. Smiley because I'd had so many others. And so I decided to go pure true with Dr. Smiley. So knocking on the kitchen counter here, I'm heading to 10,000 this week.
Wow.
But here's the cool thing,
Congratulations. Yeah.
all authentic people like you, like the engagement is more than my followership. So I always like the audience to know not just why I picked because of your heart centered, but I want to know how you created who you are because most people don't realize to create a Brad Szollose and by the way, an entertainer on top of it.
Hmm.
It's not necessarily a road that you just dip your toe and you're super successful right out of the gate. You have to
No.
find your way. So would you please share with them where you were born, what your childhood was like, and maybe something that was an indication that you'd be who you are now?
Sure. I was born in West Virginia, and it was back in the day when you had a child out of wedlock, you went to another town to have your kid. So my mom was, believe it or not, working at White Castle, and then I was born. And then my grandfather came back and had my mom move back to Pennsylvania. So I'm really a Pennsylvania boy. I grew up there, high school, junior high, you name it. And what happened to me was I'm a fifth generation drummer in my family. And so my grandfather, he played for the big bands back in the 40s and 50s. And what happened is I grew up on drummers like Gene Krupa and things like that. So uh, at an early age, my mom decided, and God bless my mother, that she played piano and sang, and I would accompany her on the drum set. And so, on top of all this, by the way, she met my stepfather, uh, Dr. Michael W. Zollis, who was a chiropractor. And that's where I got my last name from. And he raised me, and he was tough. I had that tough upbringing. So I had my mom, who was clearly the right brain, heart centered person. Very religious and faithful. And then there was my dad, who would get me up at 5:30 in the morning to do chores. It's sort of like, get up, put your work clothes on. We're going to go make a memory, that kind of thing. And so that first time on stage playing drums with my mother, I was so petrified, Ken. It wasn't funny. I couldn't look at the audience. I'm stiff, all this. And I actually was a petrifyingly shy child. People don't realize that. And my stepfather, who I call my dad, he's my father, not my stepfather to me. He broke me of that shyness by making me sit outside in the backyard. And he said, "You don't come in till you say hello to the new neighbor kid," which was across the yard in the other yard. And so a thunderstorm is brewing. I'm afraid I'm going to get hit by lightning, but I stayed there. The winds were whipping, and this kid's at the other end of the driveway sitting there looking at me too. And finally I said, "Hello." And he said, "Hi." And he said, "Okay, I got to go inside." And I ran inside. And while I'm up in my room, I thought to myself, it was more painful not to say hello than it was to just get it over with. And from that moment on, I stopped being shy, and I became outgoing, and I started being forming the personality you see today. But I think the thing that made me an entrepreneur was I was surrounded by entrepreneurs. And like most people, if your dad goes to a job every day, you're probably going to gravitate to a job. But my father was self employed. My grandfather was self employed with my grandmother. They owned a restaurant and a bar. And my mom had her own beauty salon, and she sang and played piano. My grandfather still played drums up until he was in his 70s. And my dad was not only a chiropractor, he had an accounting firm in Lebanon, Pennsylvania called A1 Accounting. So here I am surrounded by entrepreneurs. And
That's a
so
good, that's a good mix, Brad.
it is, but it's sort of like, I'm an Aquarius. And so my stepfather was incredibly frustrated with me because he had like a bachelor's or a master's degree in chemistry from Lebanon Valley College. Like, he was super brain, loved numbers, loved chemistry. And here I am going, what's a logarithm? I had no clue. My brain just couldn't process those things, but I got straight A's in everything from, well, I got straight A's, believe it or not, A's and B's in algebra, geometry. I could think in 3D, but as soon as we got to calculus and chemistry, I'm like, forget about it. In history, got straight A's and B's. So my dad, the other thing he did, and you're going to laugh at this, he made it so hard to ask for a $20 bill back in the late 60s, early 70s, that it was easier for me to start a business with a bunch of friends of mine. So it's like, why do you have to make it so hard, Dad? So before he died, I actually asked him, I said, why did you have to be so rough on me? He goes, "Yeah, you built character, didn't it?" But his answer was, "I wanted you to be somebody. I wanted you to make something of yourself." So that first business was really it was called Disco Enterprise, and I had it with Dale Murphy and Tom Moyer, and we ran around and we were DJs at dances and different things like that. And when you're 16, I had enough money to put gas in my car, go out to dinner. I was making more money than my friends who were working at McDonald's. And I also played drums for some quartets and bands, and I was playing at, like, the Hershey Country Club and places where there
Wow.
were doctors and lawyers.
Yep.
And so in 1979, Ken, you're going to laugh, I was making $80 a night, not all the time, but once in a while, $80 on a Saturday night to play drums and play all the old standards, like My Funny Valentine and things like that. And if you look at that in today's numbers, that's about $350
That sure
for the
is.
evening, for the night, while my friends are struggling to work and do all these other things at fast food restaurants.
They make
Now,
it about 20.
yeah, yeah. And well, back then, minimum wage was like 3.53,
I
$4 an
remember.
hour. Yeah. And so, well, we're about the same age. And you look back and you go, wow, I was able to save money even though I was making like $4 an hour. Um, but I did work at Hershey Park, and that was one of my first real jobs, as they say, job. And I was a barker, believe it or not. In the stands, I would bark. I would say, "Step on up, give it a try. 50 cents is all it takes." And you do the squirt gun into the clown's mouth, blow up the balloon in it. First one to pop wins. So I did stuff like that. But I wanted to be a graphic designer. I figured out my senior year of high school, either I was going to be a musician, or I was going to use my voice for a living, or I was going to do art and design. And I wound up going to college at the Art Institute of Pittsburgh. And so to fast forward, make a short story long or a long story short, one or the other, I wound up moving to New York City after graduation. And being entrepreneurial, I looked at that first paycheck and I was so frustrated. And I'm working for design firms, and the first group of people to get fired when they do layoffs are the designers, even though we make the product. And I realized I got to go freelance because I'm not making enough money to really enjoy life. So I was freelancing, went freelance, and I made my yearly salary in 6 months in that first year that I went freelance. And then the second thing I did is I did caricatures on the weekends, so I could make. I lucked out. I was doing caricatures, and this is probably a whole other show. I didn't know it at the time, but I was doing caricatures for the mob, which I'm going to put in my one man show someday because I was doing these private parties, and all of a sudden I'm going, wait a minute. A lot of people here go, hey, how you doing? Draw me as a skateboarder. I've always wanted to ride a skateboard, and I would do that and draw. And I was making like $100 an hour in like 1985, 86. That was a lot of money back then.
A lot of money.
Uh, yeah, and I would rent a car on weekends because I would have 3 gigs in a row.
Again, that's
So,
almost like a triple. That's about one third what it would be in this money here. That's
oh, I know,
about $300 an hour.
easily.
Easily, easily.
And so fast forward, I started another business. That one failed. I had a business partner that was sort of iffy. And then one of my buddies from college said, hey, I've always wanted to start a business with you. And that was Doug Cleek. And we decided to call it K2. One night we were just naming names, and as he's leaving, I go, we were avid skiers and hikers, and I said maybe we want to call it K2, named after one of the mountains in the Karakoram region of the Himalayas. And all of a sudden, just the hair on the back of our necks stood up, and from that moment on, we built this business. And I know it's some of it's in the book. It's why I wrote Liquid Leadership, but we grew exponentially 425% every year from 1995 to the year 2000. We just had 425% growth every single year, going from like $1.5 million a year to all of a sudden being up there with $7.3 million.
What were
And
you
we went
doing?
public on NASDAQ and raised about $6 million there.
What were you doing, Brad?
What's that?
What was the business?
The business, all we did was it was K2 Design, and what we did is we were the one of that first wave of companies that built websites, got corporate America onto the World Wide Web,
Wow.
and we only did big sites like we did American Express and we did MCI when they before they were bought by other companies. We were doing the very big stuff, yeah. So and I have to thank David Setner for that because when he came along. We had no startup capital, by the way. This was all bootstrapped. People are mesmerized by the fact that we spent years not having any money. We were living paycheck to paycheck, basically. But somehow, we survived all that. we would do some serious nail biting on a Thursday night when payroll was due the next day. And I was secretary and treasurer of the company by default.
I was going to
That
say
is,
congratulations on the promotion.
thank you. It's amazing when you are an entrepreneurial startup, the expansion rate was just it was explosive, and that's how I
That's
wound up.
actually a dangerous expansion rate for.
Oh, it was. I mean, I thought I was going to go crazy. I mean, I literally had to go to meditation seminars. I had to take classes on management
Yeah,
because,
I'd like to interject real quick, if that's okay, Brad.
sure.
The audience may not know this, but you grow too slow, you had to go out of business. You go way too fast, you have some capital, you have some growing pains that could knock you out of business when you would stay in business
Yeah.
if you weren't growing so fast.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, thank God I had three other business partners because, plain and simple, a normal human being could not
Yeah.
handle that kind of growth because I'd walk through the hall one day and all of a sudden we'd have four new employees and I didn't know who they were.
Right.
And this would happen every single week. And all of a sudden we went from me and Doug to David and Matt DeGannon as business partners. And then we hired probably 15 new employees all of a sudden. Within 6 months, we're suddenly real. And probably one of the craziest things that happened is when we started to land like AOL and different companies like that to do their websites. I decided to get some corporate photos taken of us. And wouldn't you know it, it's sort of kismet. It was like 2 weeks later, Advertising Age calls and they want to do an expose about all these digital companies that are suddenly cropping up that are building websites. Well, they could only find 10 or 12 across the United States. So I sent in these photos that we had taken. Well, we were plastered on like the main page of a full page expose on all of this, all these different companies that were there, and they could only find 10 that were really worthy of mentioning. And we had just done the Gary Kasparov Chess Challenge. So we did that for 2 years in a row for Ogilvy. And all of a sudden, our phone just rang off the hook like crazy. So we understood the power of PR and getting press from a very early moment in time there. And I use that today for my clients.
That's kind of your gift, isn't it? The marketing and the press stuff, publicity.
Oh, yeah. I help people today, much like you, launch their brand into the marketplace. People who are unknowns before, now they get their book published. I help them find a publisher. I may even design the cover for them, but I do their one sheets. I teach them how to speak on stage. I've done dozens and dozens of keynotes. Um, and I show them, I've done a TED talk as well. So I show them my system of how to speak and how to talk when you're on television. And then we launch their website and, their books and their genius idea. I'm basically a star maker, I guess they call it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to just backtrack on a couple of things. First of all, I wish your dad had adopted me because my dad and mom did not know what the word entrepreneur meant. And at age 18, my uncle, who's not the nicest guy in the world, but he was an entrepreneur, he felt sorry for me. So he sent me the E-Myth. And when I read that, I go, finally, someone that understands me. And then the second thing I wanted to share with you, because you just gave me a lot of stuff that you never said on the first show, first of all.
Oh, really? Wow.
But this is all, I mean, it's almost all new. Either that or maybe I forgot some of it. But shyness. The reason also is your dad making you do that. My
Yeah.
dad never made me do that. And I want to tell you a secret that has been disclosed maybe 2 or 3 times on Voice America. But my first 6 years as a DJ out of 40, my first 6 years, I would not get on the mic.
Hey,
Yeah. So,
first time. Hey, everybody, let's dance.
do you know what the number one comment a client would say to me? Number one client,
What?
can you say it again? No one heard it. And after,
Inconceivable.
well, in 6 years, I finally said kind of what you did. I said, it's harder to actually stop me on the mic and getting these people to come back and ask me to do it again. I'm just going to do it. And so I learned how to drink.
Yeah. That feeling, that tightness in the chest and the
Oh,
stomach. Yeah, I was like, ah. I still remember it to this day. I'm like, ugh, why was I so, I think it's self-awareness, or self-consciousness.
well,
And
I
now I
had,
don't care.
I started two companies when I was 18 because of that E-Myth. One was a design company and I ended up going to design school just like you, and the DJ company. And I never stopped designing technically because what you're doing with books is the biggest part that I just want to see if I have it handy. Yeah. Look, if you don't have a good
Yeah,
cover, if you don't have a good
yeah.
cover, don't do the book.
It's so true. People don't realize. I mean, I see these people going on Canva going, "Look at my book cover I did." And as a professional designer who went to college for this with a 40-year career and I've freelanced for Lintus and Saatchi, I'm cringing. And I'm
Right.
like, just because you heated up your meal in the microwave doesn't make you a chef, and using Canva doesn't make you a professional designer. Drives me crazy because there's two things we have to factor in nowadays when we design. You want touchability of your book. Your book is judged by its cover. I hate to say it.
Yep.
And so when they see it, they want to pick it up. It's got to be tactile. But at the same time, yeah. Do you know what everybody was doing when I had that cover designed over at Greenleaf?
Huh.
Everybody was doing these big, colorful covers with big, bold letters and everything. And I did the opposite because I wanted it to stand out on the shelf. And it did at the time.
Oh,
And it
big time.
may,
And also
by
it's
its,
classy with this.
yeah. By the way, that I when I would take those books in my suitcase through the airport security, they would stop and go through my luggage because there's metal in the ink.
Oh,
So it would be
really?
shiny, so their scanners couldn't penetrate it. It's hilarious. Um, but anyways, the second thing you have to take into consideration is look behind you right now, folks. If you're watching this on video, you see all of Ken's books and their images lined up there. Well, when you go on Amazon or you go online, those little squares are competing with every other little square. So your book title and whatever image you're putting on there has got to stand out because people they might Google, let's say, leadership, and there are thousands and thousands of books on leadership. How are they going to choose yours?
Right. Yeah.
And so got
I
to
just want to
stand
read.
out.
I want to read something that would complement what you just said. So, in my book that you have, there's a page called covers, and I'll just read the two quotes. One is, "If people don't notice your cover or don't connect with it, the author of the book next to yours will be very grateful."
Yeah, it's true.
And then the other thing is, even though we don't judge a book by a cover, but we really do, it's that the cover is of a book is the beginning of a conversation between the author and the reader. And if you know when you hand a business card to someone, you cross out your number and
Yep.
you have all these modifications, you're basically saying, "I'm not serious."
Yes. Yeah.
And so when you do a Canva or you do this whip together and you haven't done the test marking, you haven't talked to people that are real experts like yourself, you are saying, "I don't care if my book sells." That, I mean, that's kind of what
Yeah.
you're saying.
Well, here's my problem, and for those of you listening, God bless you. You know, you're jumping in, you're doing it, you're trying to do it. You may not know what you don't know, and so like behind Ken, he has black with gold lettering. That pops. It's classic. It's traditional design. The second thing he did is on his newest book cover, they use Rembrandt lighting, it's called, because of the painter, Rembrandt. He would use one light source, and you just stand out on that cover beautifully. And you've done enough books that you have the clout now to put yourself on the cover. And it pops beautifully. Whoever did your photo, hats off. Good job.
Yes,
And
she's amazing. Go ahead.
yeah, so you want to simplify your message. You want to simplify the title. You want to simplify what people see. I did a book cover for a friend of mine, and she wanted a diamond and something else to say you can either be perfect, which is the diamond, or you can be happy, you know, because she was raising kids and she was doing all this. Well, I came up with a smiley button. I made my own smiley button and I splattered it with mud. Real simple image. And she goes, I don't get it. And she got mad, but she showed it to her family and friends. They're like, that's genius. He's saying, you know, when you're happy, you're in the mud, you're dirty up, but you don't care.
Right.
So one of those images can catapult everything for you. Yeah, I love your designs are great. They pop. They
Thank
pop
you.
every time.
Well, good designers know good design, right? So,
Yep.
and so I just want to say, Anna Lamstrom was the photographer who took that picture, and when I got it, I said, "Oh my gosh, she got me."
Yeah. She
But
got it.
here's the last thing I want to say about covers is that if you're a great writer, it's okay to forgive yourself. You're not a great marketer and you're not a great cover designer. Like forgive yourself of what you're not and let someone who
Yeah.
is like, you know, the biggest mistakes I made, Brad. was not hiring a great accountant, and a great lawyer when I started my business. Like that would have changed my acceleration. Yet I used the excuse they're expensive, but they're not expensive compared to what you're going to lose.
I was still doing the books at K2 just before we went public. And I'm the guy you don't want to be your accountant. Let's put it that way. So you're
That's
making
funny.
me laugh here. I'm like, we're in New York City. You put your arm out the window, there's an accountant,
Right.
so here I am doing our books like an idiot. Sorry to say it. But I'm just like, are you kidding, Brad?
You had a
And I
family
learned.
member that was you had a family member that was an accountant, didn't you? And
My dad, actually, he was an accountant. Yeah.
he wasn't going to touch it.
No, no. He was in Pennsylvania. So we're in New York City, and this was big numbers, big accounting.
Yeah.
Um, my dad had probably 600 clients, and he had a really good business in Pennsylvania, which we sold after he passed. So he had built a nice little company there.
Well, before we talk a little bit about this beautiful book, beautiful title, beautiful design,
Thank you.
you do some impersonations, and I know I didn't ask you if you would do any, but would you do a couple? Because I think it is the well-rounded beauty of the zaniness of Brad.
Wow, I didn't know. You knew I did impersonations. It's amazing. And I'm known for Christopher Walken because I can do him like he really sounds. I do that one. Sometimes I do Trump, which people laugh. I was like, they shot me, Ken. They shot me. I'm telling you. But I survived because I'm Neo from the Matrix. I also, my other favorite I like to do is Wallace Shawn from The Princess Bride, which is inconceivable. You've bested my giant. You've outwitted my swordsman. The only thing left is a battle of wits. So
That
that's
is
just a,
that's got to be better than the best scenes of all time. Not just
you
of that
know,
movie. I mean, just the gallop, the
I
goblet.
know.
God, that's
Danny DeVito was supposed to get that part, and Wallace Shawn was so nervous that he overdid everything, and it was genius because he was just like, "Never get involved with a Sicilian when death is on the line." And I had the incredible blessing of meeting Wallace Shawn
did
at
you
a Dean,
really?
yeah, at a Dean and DeLuca in New York City, and I'm standing on line, and the line is out the door. And Dina DeLuca in New York City sells coffee and food to grab, and you can sit down. It's more than just utensils for the kitchen. And so I hear at the end of the counter, I'm like 15 feet away. I hear this. Excuse me, sir. You seem to have run out of sugar. Do you have any more sugar, perhaps? And it's him. And I go, I love your work. Thank you, young man. He was really great, but he has a sweet tooth. Oh my God. I think he put nine things of sugar in his coffee.
Well, he's in that new episode movie, the smart kid,
Yeah. Oh, young
Sheldon,
Sheldon.
young
Yeah.
Sheldon. Boy, is he
And
amazing in there? He's so good.
he is brilliant. He's just wonderful. Um, he's one of the celebrities I've met that I just admire. Also, the late Robin Williams. I got a chance to meet him.
Did you really?
That was bizarre because I did stand up comedy for 8 years. After I left K2, I was a professional comedian. I used to open for Lisa Lampanelli and Tom Rhodes and people like that.
Wow.
Uh, that's how I get many of the celebrities on my podcast, Awakened Nation. I've known them for years, and they just happen to have an HBO special now. You know what I mean? So when I met Robin Williams, I just happened to walk into a comedy club one night that I had worked at many, many times. And he went up on stage, and I went backstage to watch from the backstage area. And then I could tell he was winding down, and I just walked back out to the bar, and I'm standing there leaning against the wall. Robin comes off stage, comes through the crowd, comes back into the bar area, and he just walks right up to me, and we start talking for 20 minutes. I was like, I bet, humana, humana, that kind of thing. And like you said, like energy attracts like energy. And he just goes, man, they really liked me. I said, Robin, it's you, man. And I don't get the fanboy jitters. I just talk to him and like a normal person, like a buddy.
Right.
And it was hilarious because when I had first walked in, all the other comedians who were hanging around at the bar, they're trying to get his attention. They're trying to talk to him. They're trying so hard, to connect with Robin Williams. And he walks right up to me. And I asked him a couple of cool questions. One of them is, uh, why he chose a couple of movies. And he just went off, and we had a lot of fun. And then that was it. And then he died a few years ago, and that really bothered me. So he was
Yeah,
a great soul,
it
just a
bothered a lot of
great.
people. That a lot of people hung on him for the ultimate, the ultimate laugh. Like he
Yeah.
always provide laughter and joy.
Yeah.
I'm going to probably stalk you and not leave you alone until you recommend and nominate some people for the Dr. Smiley Show. Just so you go,
Um,
you're not going to be able to get rid of
yeah.
me.
No, I will definitely recommend a couple of people. Well, Dina Mitchell, I think she has gone through so much. A suicide survivor, someone who, went to the next level and really pushed for that. So I'd recommend Dina Mitchell.
Super.
She's also started a group that supports women who have been abused, and they get to write their chapter in her books called Scars to Stars, how they
Oh, that's
recovered.
fantastic.
Yeah, so I think Dina, I'll introduce you to her. She is just a wonderful soul.
Thank you, Brad.
Yeah, just a wonderful, wonderful soul. And then I guess the other person is escaping me right now, but
I have actually a couple of people that are comedians that I want to introduce you to. Maybe they'll work out on your show.
oh, that'd be great. I would love that.
Because when I go to
Uh,
these big events and they hire a big comedian, I do typically get a little bit of FaceTime with them, and they give me their number and we stay in touch. So you might be pleasant.
Absolutely. I would love that. Thank
Um,
you.
this
Yeah,
book
liquid
here.
leadership.
So
That's
you did the same thing that Malcolm Gladwell did, a revisit. It sounds like a second edition,
yes, I have
10th year
the 10th
anniversary.
anniversary that we did a little redesign on it. It's got a light bulb instead of the globe, a light bulb made of water,
So
but
why
it's
don't
the
we
same
take this?
typeface.
Why don't we take this and say, why don't you give me between one and three things people get from this, and then maybe one or two distinctions to the new book. That'd be great.
What happened is, as I'm writing, a friend of mine was heavily into using gaming technology as a teaching methodology, and I just laughed. I was a typical boomer. He said, "You shouldn't laugh." He said, they were working on creating CD-ROM interactive gaming for people who had autism, teenagers with autism, to show them how to interact through multiple choice, acting out different scenarios so that they wouldn't, create a faux pas. So I'm sitting there going, "Are you kidding?" And so before I was writing Liquid Leadership, I flew out to Madison, Wisconsin to attend this games and learning society where academia was meeting with game designers, and they were trying to figure out how to use gaming technology in the classrooms. And so that was one aspect that started to blow my mind when I was writing Liquid Leadership, because here is the crux of Liquid Leadership. It will teach you why millennials, Gen X, Gen Z act the way they do, why they make different choices, why they have different needs, likes, and wants than boomers. And so, what you'll learn from liquid leadership right off the bat is we've always had five generations in the workforce. When I started working, my grandfather was selling real estate at 65. I'm 16, 65. Five generations were always in the workforce. The difference is what motivates a boomer will never motivate a millennial. So we have five different generations with five different needs, wants, likes, and expectations. And that's really why I started writing the book. It was to shake boomers awake, my brethren boomers, and say, hey, it this paradigm is such a drastic shift. You're laughing at your kid playing video games when he's actually learning 21st century business skills.
Right.
And so that's in there, gamification, how gamification works, what motivates us. And I think the biggest thing that I wanted to parlay to people or give over to people was what I learned while I was at K2 building this multi-million dollar company. And so there's basically it's basically the tools for you to create a modern business with great people and the ability to expand and create legacy and things like that. So, liquid leadership will teach you how to be a great leader in this multi generational work environment that you're in today. And one of the first things I talk about in there is you have to create an environment where you can tell the truth. Can't lie to each other. You can't BS each other. You
Right.
have to be able to tell the truth. You also have to create an environment of trust. You don't fire somebody simply because they tell the CEO, hey, look, maybe your girlfriend shouldn't be designing the website now that we have 60 employees and we have millions of dollars in the bank. That's a true story, by the way.
I kind of could tell.
And then the third thing is got to create a creative environment where some of these ideas, some of these thoughts can incubate a little bit. And so I really, really broke all my experiences down from childhood all the way up to taking a company public, and all my mistakes too. I wanted people to understand being locked inside some of our boomer ideas and mindset has kept us from seeing that there's whole economies going on that we don't see. You know, you used to be able to, you're a boomer as well, or you're right on the cusp of Gen X and boomer. You used to be able to ride down Main Street, or especially around Christmas time, and look around and go, wow, the economy's not doing good. Or the following year, you go, wow, everybody's out. Well, here's a good example. You remember when Iron Man, the movie, came out in 2008?
I do.
Okay, over that weekend, the box office brought in like 98 to $100 million. Great, right? It's a good start. The video game was released the same weekend, and it brought in almost $200 million. So it was selling double what the movie was, and nobody talked about it and nobody knew about it
Hmm.
unless you were a gamer. And this starts to explain why there are lines out the door in Times Square to pick up the latest Nintendo station, or Sony's PlayStation, or the newest console. There are things happening that boomers may have poo pooed in the past. And my favorite thing to do, Ken, when I'm doing a keynote, I ask the audience how many still play video games. And when they put their hands up, I say, keep your hands up. I go, boomers, look around the room. And they're shocked that their 30 and 40-year-old executives are playing video games on a Saturday night with their wife. You know, and they're like they thought it was a play thing when in fact it is a challenge. It's interactive. It's doing things that television could never do, hand-eye coordination. Yeah, I talked about this in my
Spatial intelligence,
yeah.
and perceptual speed. Those are really big things. I
Well,
mean,
when I did my TED talk, I pointed out what are the 9 things that you learn or have to do with inside a video game to be able to do what you do. And the first one is you have to make mistakes in order to learn. You don't read a box like we did with Monopoly. You read all the rules and then you start playing. And the game always ended with, Frank flipping the board because he lost all his money. So that's how it used to be. Now you learn in a video game by mistakes. You make mistakes. That's how you master. The more mistakes you make, the more mastery you gain. And then you look for cheat codes and things like that. Imagine a lifetime of growing up doing that. And now you understand why, when these younger people came into the work environment, they made mistakes all the time and they were okay with it. Whereas a boomer, if we made a few mistakes, our career was over. So we're uh, risk averse while they're risk embracing. And then there's a bunch of other things like peer-to-peer networks. You don't look up at hierarchy. You have access to the wizard. You have access to, to being able and hire the dwarves so that you can take the castle. Everything's peer to peer. And then we wonder why they walked in and started talking to the CEO and saying, hey, Chad, I'm going to show you how to run this company. But it
right.
wasn't just video games, it was also parenting changed. Now you could talk to your teacher and your parents just like you would talk to anybody else. And so you started to see young people using their big boy voice to tell off their parents. And we can laugh at this now, but this was the big paradigm shift.
Yes.
And that's all in liquid leadership, by the way.
Right. And I was going to say liquid leadership, the subtitle is phenomenal. From Woodstock to Wikipedia, multi-generational management ideas that are changing the way we run things. And I want to comment, your book, I have thousands of books. I have three rooms of library books. This is in my primary library for several reasons. One, I love the way you put the book together. Number two, It is a hardback book. You seriously made a statement when you did a hardback book. It's in my hardback book section. And when you make that extra effort, you have someone say, "Oh, I have to read this book." He actually put a lot more money into it. I mean, a hardback book
Yeah.
is a serious
Yeah.
commitment.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm
And
blown away. I
the
really am.
last thing I
Thank
want to
you.
say is when I saw it was 307 pages, I was saying, "Please, Brad, please make it for ADHD, all diagrams, all drawings." And it wasn't. It's all words. But I want to just say, just for fun, when I do a show, I just open the book randomly. And if I randomly pick that it's truth, that every page is valuable, I want to read the two things I got from two different pages.
Okay.
On page 151, high standards will generate greater output. That one sentence by itself, you apply that to your business and your ideology and your philosophy of doing entrepreneur and customer service, you will blow away the competition. Just that one
Yeah.
sentence.
Thanks.
Okay. Then this one right here on page 150. Set up a system with criteria and guidelines. People on teams must earn the right to be there. Otherwise, it's a waste of everyone's time. I mean, just two things, 2 pages. And all I did was glance down and said, what's the first thing I can see here? So every page is valuable in here. And I want to also mention, remember the movie about the guy's challenge? He says, you got the was it Daytona 500, and you have
Right.
the kids that do the video games. Let's
Right.
let's put them in the real cars. And he says that's impossible, no way. And it was a great movie.
It was. What was it called? El Torino or
Yeah,
whatever.
something like
Yeah.
that. Yeah, that was
Gran Torino.
Gran
Yeah.
Torino. Yes.
I got that was the first video game I got for me and my nephew so we could play together. And we had so much, what a bonding experience. If you play video games with your kids, it's such a bonding experience. I was on the road with a buddy of mine, and he said, "Hey, I'm going to show you how World of Warcraft works." And I'm like, "Come on." He gets on, he shows me, I become a mage. Then he kicks me out of his hotel room. Me and another buddy were there, and he goes, "You got to go." I said, "Why?" He goes, "This is the time I use to play World of Warcraft with my kids so that when I'm home on the weekend, we pick up just as if, nothing had happened, like dad
That's
was
awesome.
never away."
That's great.
And I thought, that is genius,
Well,
just genius.
and that's the point of your book is if you don't know what your kids like, you've already made yourself impossible to understand them. So I wanted to use a different word and with your permission. You
Sure.
said, this generation is what they need, what they want, what they like, and all that stuff. But I think it's encapsulated in one word. What is their priority?
Yeah.
And so, can you tell me what the priority of the generation, whatever one, and what the boomer is, and maybe one other one?
Well, do you remember when you and I saved our entire life to take that dream vacation when we
Yeah,
hit 40, right?
yeah, right.
Well, I'll give you a good example. I was teaching a liquid leadership workshop to a company that handles $3 trillion in assets. Okay, so one of the trainings I did 5 of them. One of the C-suite people joined us, and she was a woman. And before we got started, I walk around the room and I touch base with everybody, and I have a chart and I write down names so I don't forget names. And she's sitting there on the phone and doing what an executive does. And so she's connecting, and I hear part of her phone call. She's talking to her daughters, and they're in Patagonia right at that moment on top of the mountain sending pictures.
Hmm.
And she hangs up and she goes, "My daughters are in Patagonia." And she told us the whole story. And we're like, "Oh, that's cool." And I'm thinking, how can I interweave this into what I'm doing in the morning training? And so what happened is I do a brain walking exercise where I have 4 flip charts in each corner. And in each corner on that flip chart, it has a generational title: boomers, silent generation, Gen X, millennials. And I divide it down the center. And on the left, you put the positives of that generation and the negatives of that generation. And sometimes it's neutral, it's right in the middle. And after we did that exercise, she's sitting there with her eyes wide open because they were trying to find actual talent that they could hire. And she couldn't understand why people weren't staying and why people weren't challenged and were complaining. And all of a sudden, she's sitting there going, "So I taught my daughters how to be strong, independent women to take no guff. And if they were in a company where they weren't treated well, they tell off the CEO and they leave." And I go, "Yeah, okay." She goes, "But that's how everybody raised their kids." I said, "Exactly. And I said, and who raised them? And I ran over to the boomer chart. I go, boomers raised the millennials. And so now we have this conundrum. What are we dealing with here? So, this next generation, what do they really want? Well, they want great, rich experiences. And those experiences, they're going to go on vacations now. They're not going to save for it. They're going now.
Right.
And by the way, they might not tell you on a Friday they're going to Patagonia and they come back on a Tuesday. And you're like, where were you for 2 days? Guess what? They don't care. They will ask forgiveness before they'll ask permission.
Life is to be
They
lived.
also, what's that?
Life is to be lived.
Life is to be lived, to have experiences. They do look down on billionaires, but at the same time, they want to build businesses, billion-dollar businesses, where the people are treated better. They don't want to, be yelled at or screamed at. They don't like dysfunction in the workplace. They don't like when somebody who is in the C-suite assumes that they're better simply because they're in the C-suite. They see themselves as a partner in the success of your business. And by the way, they will negotiate their contracts, their employment contracts, like generals, hardened generals on a battlefield, because they've gone through the process. They've watched their parents lose their house, lose their jobs, all kinds of things. So they don't see themselves as permanently going to be there for the next 40 years. They figure 3 years and move on. Oh,
Yeah.
and they like to automate their job, by the way.
Yes, they do. Yeah. Sometimes they get fired because they've automated it too much.
Yeah, what was the story? One guy automated his job and didn't show up for 3 years and collected a check because he just created the program that would make it do what it had to do.
Well said. That's so funny. So I want to make sure. Is there any other questions that or anything else that you wanted to add about the book? You have the new book. Tell me what's new in the new book.
Well, the new book, I updated it because some of my predictions did come true, like the delivery of fresh, direct, things like that. How Netflix really started to dominate the marketplace, but ran into trouble again. So everybody's reinventing everything. And for those of you watching at home on video, I usually point out to people that boomers were raised with the GAF Viewmaster. That was our most interactive device when I was a kid. If the power went out in the house and the sun went down, you couldn't use this unless you had a flashlight. And then by 1984, people got this, which is the Nintendo 64 game console. So whenever I try to teach people what the big change was brain-wise, I hold these two things up and I said, "Do you think our brains work differently?" And they do. This generation, anybody born after 1984, really, their brains don't work like a boomer's at
No.
all. Yeah.
Well, it's said that the kids that are born after 2000 that they can multitask their brain.
Yeah, they've been trained differently. So you literally, if you watch the Jetsons as a kid, you have Elroy now. Elroy, your kid is Elroy,
Yeah.
and your grandkids are Elroy. They're working with nuclear fusion while you're still trying to figure out how the combustion engine works. And if we look back 100 years, I mean, I was thinking about this the other day, Ken. When I was in elementary school, big shout out to Harding Elementary School. My final year there before I went on to junior high, I think it was like 11 or 12 years old, we had to do a bunch of book reports. And by the end of the semester, you're supposed to have like 5 or 6 books that you read, 9 by the end of the year. You had a full year to get through all this. So one of the books I picked up was How Electricity Works. And I'm reading it, and I know how electricity works now. But I was 12. Okay. I don't know if kids today delve into stuff like that, but they definitely know computer science by the time they're 12 because they've put together computers and taken them apart. So I'm thinking to myself, when I'm reading the book, I said, this is fascinating, but I bet back in 1886, when they first put the electric grid in Washington, D.C., through Thomas Edison's company, I doubt if anybody knew how electricity worked.
Mm-hmm.
The average person did not know. Now, they could have grasped it if people had trained them, but this is why they had so many fires in New York City and places like that, because in the beginning, they didn't know to insulate the wires. Hello. Things like that they learned by mistake. But how electricity actually works, many of the principles that we have in electricity were laid down by Benjamin Franklin, positive and negative. That came from him. And so today you have a generation that is starting to talk about copper fusion. They're starting to talk about, can we have quantum mechanics built into certain things? And they're now starting to work with quantum computing. So they're light years ahead of us. Understanding it, sometimes I just have a younger person explain it to me like I'm 6 years old. Explain how this works. And it really helps because then you can grasp, the modern equivalency of understanding electricity.
Well, I wanted to make a comment that was a little bit of a bridge between another guest I'd had, Michael Drew. He wrote a book
Mhm.
about the pendulum and how history repeats itself. And I want to say there's a correlation with what you're saying. The generations have their different priorities. And when you say a generation says, I want to experience life right now, it's the pendulum going the other way from lack of loyalty, lack of integrity of what it
Yeah,
is to actually be true to your workers or true to your team. And they're overcompensating for that, which causes that peer. So it's very interesting.
it is. And it is a back and forth thing. When millennials first hit the workforce, we I think people were so shocked by the things they were doing and asking for. Like their mom would drop off their resume. And if they didn't get that raise, the mom called the CEO. That had never been done before.
Right.
It's like, what's going on? Um, and we didn't know how to talk to them simply because they would, as a group, just get up and leave.
Right.
So now we're starting to realize, okay, maybe we should have just adjusted a little bit more and been more honest with them in those days when they first came on the scene. And now we're swinging back to, okay, everybody has to be at work now.
Yeah.
you
And
know,
it's such a valuable like golden rule. If you ask a new employee, what do you think would make this place better? You're actually doing yourself a favor because they have fresh eyes.
yeah,
And if you're hiring someone that is a got problem solving skills, you just hired a gold mine.
yeah, you did. And
So
also, they're on top of any application that could actually replace an entire department. So you have to listen to young people today. You have to.
yeah, and if you don't listen to them, it's just like someone saying, I don't want a good book cover. I can do this myself. Because
I'm a chef. I can microwave stuff.
yeah. Well, but if you say I don't want to hear a young person's opinion, you're saying I just don't want to stay in business as good.
Yeah,
You're just not going to say. So I have five finishing questions. I don't know if they're going to your answer is going to be different, but we're going to try them out.
good.
So first of all, Brad, thank you for being on the show. Your time is very
Thank
valuable,
you.
and I appreciate you spending an hour with me. How can people connect with you, follow you, celebrate you?
You can just do a Google search on my name. I'm sure it's going to be in the show notes. You can go to my website or you can email me. I'm bradszollose@gmail.com or Brad at
Great,
Liquid Leadership. Either one.
great pronunciation, by the way, Brad. You have
Thank
not
you.
knocked out of the park. Your dad must have also said you're not coming in the house until you get your last names pronounced right.
It took a while, trust me. I also have a podcast we didn't really mention, but it's Awakened
Waken.
Nation, past tense, Awakened Nation. I've had all kinds of people on there, including Dog the Bounty Hunter, Belinda Carlisle, Dr. Joe Vitale.
Amazing.
I try to have a fun interview. You're going to be on next. Um, and those are the places you can look for.
You know,
You'll find all my stuff.
you're one of the few people that has a podcast with my name in it. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. You're
I
welcome.
mean, I get so excited when I see broke Ken or awake Ken, things like that.
Wake up, Ken. That was nice.
All right. So
Uh,
the big five questions. Here we go. And you can keep them short. And if you say, gosh, I can't decide, I got two, go ahead and say two. All right, here we go. A book that changed your life.
Book that changed my life. The Way of the Peaceful Warrior by Dan Millman. And I got a chance to interview him. Very powerful book. It made me see spirituality and life and work as one. Beautiful book.
Awesome. Movie that inspires you.
What Dreams May Come with Robin Williams.
Man,
Uh, because I kind of believe when we die, this is how it is. We get to form our reality based on our experiences. And yeah, everything's consciousness, vibration, love, light, all those things. So it ties into what my belief system is.
that's one of the deepest movies ever made.
Yeah, it is. It is.
You watch that movie, it's even hard to say, let me watch it again. And you gulp at the thought of watching it again.
Well, here's the crazy part. That was the question I asked Robin Williams when I met him. I said, "What made you choose to do that movie?" And he said, I met the director and he was beep crazy. And he goes, and then I had to meet the author and he was beep crazy. And so I said, I got to do the beeping movie. And I was laughing. Said, good choice. Uh, yeah.
And gorgeously cinematography was
Oh,
insane.
it's brilliant.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was. There's so many check marks on what it is. And by the way, the number one thing that my friend who was a film major said, a film is great when you can't stop thinking or talking about it.
It is true. It's very true.
All
Wow.
right. What song gets you going?
Well, I do love anything from Rush. I'm a big Rush fan. The
Woo!
Canadian band.
Neil
Yeah.
Peart, baby.
I met them in person, but I got to tell you, the song that kicks it up a notch for me is AC/DC's Thunderstruck, the live version.
Yes.
There's nothing quite like that. You know, thunder. Yeah, that gets me going. Always.
That's Ben Rude. He was the drummer. No,
I
who's
believe so. Yeah.
no? Yeah, okay. Yeah, there's so many great drummers you were able to study. And since I was a DJ,
Yeah.
for God, you must have loved hearing all the different drums and some of the.
Well, I think the greatest thing that happened to me is I got to give my grandfather his first drum lesson. He was self-taught, and I gave him his first drum lesson, I guess, when he was in his mid 50s. I was very proud of that moment. And then I sat him down one day, and he hated rock music. He just thought it was horrible. And I said, Pap, you got to listen to this guy. This drummer's name is Neil Peart. And I think I played, Spirit of the Radio.
I was gonna say that was the one you probably played.
Yeah, and he's just like, wow. It was so great. Yeah.
2012 too, baby. That one.
Oh, yeah. Boom, boom. Yeah, everybody knows that one.
I have every album. I have every album by Rush.
You're kidding.
Every album.
Oh, that is awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I just they were genius. They were
Yeah,
genius.
they were. I saw them at the Hershey Park Arena in Hershey, Pennsylvania in 1981, and I was hooked ever since.
I saw them in
Yeah.
Baltimore at the Baltimore, and the people that were in this in there, they were competing for whether they had seen him 40 times live or 30 times live. I mean, just and they say
It's
every
incredible.
different. I can't afford those type of Saturdays or those type of evenings when I'm a performer myself or DJ, I should say.
I tried so hard to imitate Neil Peart, I mean, I have a lot of his drum licks down. Yeah, it's incredible.
I did a
Incredible.
badass pencil drawing of him with his drumsticks. He was just my hero. I thought
Yeah, you'll
uh,
have to show it. You'll have to show.
I want to find that and show it to you. It meant a
On the
lot to me
show.
because I was an illustrator. So, and
Yeah,
the last question for, oh no. So who do you want to meet?
I don't really have any heroes like that or who I want to meet. I definitely would like to sit down with my mom and dad once again and have dinner because they've been long gone. I guess
Let me pose a different way. Who's your hero?
I would I like Alexander Hamilton from history. I would love to sit down and just pick his brain because he went from nothing to one of the founding fathers.
That's
Um,
pretty strange that you say that.
yeah.
$10 bill, right?
Yes, sir.
I just found this yesterday on the floor.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
I
him.
mean, who has a $10 bill next to them like
Yeah.
that?
Uh,
And no, if I showed you, there's no other bills anywhere here. This is just that.
I visited his grave in New York City. That's how much I admired what he did. Because he tried to end slavery.
Yep.
He felt it was just he was also born out of wedlock, which I was. He ran a business at 15, 16, which I did. Yeah,
I keep them in my phone.
you're kidding. That's incredible.
Yeah,
Mr. Hamilton,
yes, Mr. Hamlin. Well, he born January 11th, 1757. So we're hitting some
not
good
gonna
marks.
miss my shot. I'm not gonna miss my shot. Great musical. About time they made that. Oh yeah, and they went into the conspiracy theory that Hamilton was actually George Washington's illegitimate son because Washington took care of him at every level. And it
Wow,
just didn't make any sense. It's like this immigrant kid shows up at like 19 and gets it. Hamilton, he gives him, he's in charge of a battalion. It's like, what? How does that happen? It just, mm,
that's
yeah.
pretty cool.
Yeah. They even touch base on that. So I love that. Yeah. When
This is
Jefferson made fun of him in the musical, he said, "Maybe your daddy can help you out," meaning Washington. I was like,
right, right.
"Oh, nice." Yeah, every little detail was there.
I have to say, out of 650 shows, young man, this is the zestiest five fast star trivia questions, man. I'll tell you.
Thank you.
The final one, drum roll. Neil Peart. I can't do justice. Here we go. What quote do you live by?
The quote I live by is by the rapper and actor Mos Def, and it goes like this: "My presence speaks volumes before I say a word."
Awesome. I will just say that reminds me of my favorite Gandhi quote. My life is my message.
Whoa, that's beautiful.
Hey,
That is
brother.
beautiful.
Really good to have you again. I mean, the best thing I can say that happened on December 28th is God told me I got to do 365 shows. Bring on the ones you love the most. So,
Thank you. I feel honored, Ken. Thank you so much. I'm sorry, Dr. Ken.
well, you
Thank
can call me
you,
Dr. Smiley. You're always going to call me Ken as a friend.
Dr. Smiley. Thank you, my friend. I appreciate it.
All right. Well, you have a great day. I look forward to you're still in
You
Vegas.
too. Yes, sir. I am. When you're out here, let me know.
I will be out there. I get out to Vegas 4 times a year. So I'll be kicking you dinner. All right.
Thank you. I
Okay.
appreciate it. Thank you, everybody. Bye bye.